My name is Antony Porofsky. I'm 34 years old and recently famous. As part of my daily ritual, I start each morning with a homemade face mask made of Greek yogurt and steeped green tea leaves. I don't care whether they like what I cook or not. They'll eat it if they know what's good for them.
Yeah, I'm afraid of this person. Start the show.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt, and that looked psychotic.
Yeah, okay, but before we ask Bryce for a full explanation, would you place a bet on this being an actual horror thing or a fake funny horror thing?
Bryce?
No. I'm asking you.
Asking me.
That's why I say before we ask Bryce for the answer, I am posing the question.
Since it has the Queer Eye guy in it, I'm guessing it's a send-up.
Okay, so this is from a new surprise announce and launch on Netflix, a horror anthology series called Don't Watch This. It's 5 parts. It's produced by Crypt TV. This is from one of the shorts, Antony Psycho, which is a send-up of American Psycho, but it stars Antony from Queer Eye, who kind of everyone beats up on.
Why do they beat up on him?
Well, they think that the recipes that they teach the guys or the subjects of the show are not the best.
Oh, got it.
But they put out 5 shorts. Most of them are about 10 minutes long, and they're available to watch now.
Right on.
I watched one of them before the show and was like screaming in the studio because it was so gory. So some real horror stuff.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay, so not all of them are comedic in
no.
nature.
I
Okay.
think that's the only comedic one, but it's some real gore. And they're short too, so you get right to the
to the ouchie.
Yeah. The ouchie.
Ouchie. That's a technical term horror fans use to describe. Let's get on to our primary target. News, depending on who you talk to, has either been relegated to the dustbin of history as far as television news goes, or is only going to be dominated by the CNN, Fox, and NBCs of the world, unless you take into account these 2 stories. In an attempt to recapture the hearts and minds of cord cutters, millennials, and or both, Hulu is adding Cheddar, ABC News Live, and CBSN, that's CBS News, to its live TV package. These are all networks launched with the internet as the dominant way to receive them. They all target younger audiences. And NBC is launching a streaming news service called Signal on YouTube, Twitter, Pluto TV, and a few other places. Starting with a weekly newscast right now, election coverage will start ramping up as we have the election tomorrow here in the United States, and they hope by mid next year to be 24 hours, 7 days a week.
So this is interesting to me. In the case of CBSN, it was always a value add to the CBS streaming package, right? It was never...
Or you could get it on its own. You wouldn't have to be part of CBS All Access. You could just get the CBSN app, say for Roku, and just watch it with ads.
Okay, with the ads, is this another case where it's like news is in its own special category? Like back in the 1950s, as television was just getting started, news was considered to be like a public service that in general they would pretend like they were being fair and direct, and there was the fairness doctrine and all this stuff. Are we seeing the echoes of that in a cord cutting? Especially given the fact that we had cable news outlets for a while, but they are largely regarded nowadays as being inherently partisan one way or the other. Is this, do you think, an attempt to establish fertile territory of perceived neutrality?
No.
Okay. All right.
I don't think the neutrality is the target here so much. It could be a byproduct of it, but I don't see that. What I do see is companies saying, you know what, we want to make news available free and streaming on the internet. So CBSN was the first making CBSN available. It was later added to CBS All Access, but it originally just launched as an app and something you could get over the web. ABC News Live just launched recently, and now NBC getting into the game. I think it's really money. They're all seeing that the demo on their newscasts is going up and up and up and up. And they're like, we know that millennials want news. That's not at issue. They're more engaged with public events than ever before. If you look at social media, how do we get a piece of that? Well, the way we do it is to create streaming versions of our news sites. And if we're super clever, we who don't have 24-hour news services, well, NBC does, but CBS and ABC don't, will be able to undercut the CNNs and Fox Newses of the world, because we can create this and go straight to that demo without having to worry about threatening our existing package. Even Fox News is doing that pay thing where the super fans of Fox News can pay to get more Fox News.
Yes, but they're not bundling it for tell me I understood the story correctly. Hulu's just offering them as part of Hulu now, right? Like nobody's paying any extra, nobody's intentionally signing up for any of these. They're just there on if you have a subscription to Hulu.
If you're buying the Hulu package, which is $40 a month for the live TV, the big thing happening here is Hulu, which offers CNN and Fox News, now offers these internet-only packages as well. So that's a big victory for ABC and CBS to say, aha, that thing we took straight to the internet now lives right alongside those other 24-hour news services, but is in front of the younger demographic that we want to get.
So what do you think the winning play for these speculative smaller news organizations is? Like to get a scoop or to get an angle that nobody else has? Or like, how do you win in this market? Like, yes, now you share the same spaceship as you know, CNN and whatever on Hulu, but that doesn't earn you necessarily, or it doesn't hand you any mind share in that millennial audience that you want. How do you win play in this game?
NBC's Signal, which is not going on Hulu, I think is a good example of this. They're going to YouTube. They're going to Twitter. They're going to make, they say, their shows be more conversational. So I think it's in the presentation. We don't have a bunch of old graying people telling you what the news is. We have young, fresh, fun people who talk like you and understand how you look at the world and provide you that perspective. I think that's how you win. That's how Cheddar has been going, saying, yeah, all right, you can watch Fox Business or you can watch Bloomberg, but it's a little stodgy, isn't it? Let's do things in a way that speaks your language, showing people from your generation on TV talking about issues that are of importance to you in the financial world, as far as Cheddar, or just the news world in general, if you're talking about Signal.
Yeah, I feel like this is all a version of not that they're presenting themselves as neutral. I do feel like my initial reaction is they have the benefit of not being CNN, not being MSNBC, and not being Fox News. That's their number one benefit. They will at least be given the benefit of the doubt when, as somebody, you know, whatever news story is happening, it's like, well, I know I hate that. I know I hate that. And I know I hate that other thing. What's this? Right. Somebody who looks kind of like me? Great. I'll watch it here.
That's an interesting take, too, because you see it in the names, ABC News Live and CBSN. They're like, hey, we're not CNN or Fox. Whereas Cheddar, nobody cares if you're not Bloomberg. That's not as big of a deal in that
not
industry.
CNBC.
So they like, this is a cool name for money. Or NBC, which is like, oh, right, we are Rachel Maddow's station. Crap. Call that one Signal. We won't put NBC in the name anywhere.
Right.
Try to distance ourselves.
Well, and plus also, like, it's a great way to use the back end resources that they already have, but reskin it with something that will be more palatable to a younger audience.
Yeah. But it is interesting because I think a lot of people may have thought live news, maybe just a thing of the past, you know, maybe a thing where, well, what we've got is what we've got, and it'll slowly make its way into these internet packages, but it won't get disrupted much. It's CBSN and ABC News Live were interesting plays, but I don't know that people took them seriously until now. They're being put in a package. We'll see if they also get put into YouTube TV. If they get put into PlayStation View, then we'll start to say, aha, these are competitive things that don't need to play the cable game to survive. And I think that'll be interesting to watch.
I'm tempted to say that the easy play is, of course, to just say yes to everything, but I don't know that I see what's in it for a PlayStation View to dilute their brand. By which I mean, PlayStation Vue is not running the race based on being everything, because we already have everything. Everything's on the internet, right? They're running on being a replacement to cable. And if you take these brand new, nascent news networks and throw them on there, there's a reason that basic cable had greater prestige than extended cable. Extended cable was like, hey, heck, what's next? A whole network dedicated to tech? You know, it's like, whatever, it's extended cable. Who cares? And if they're trying to stay away from that stigma of just, throwing everything in, which on the flip side, like Pluto is embracing. They're like, no, yeah, we're literally everything. Yes, here's a channel that has a YouTube channel, but now it's playing all the time on this Pluto channel. It seems like PlayStation Vue would want to distinguish themselves and maybe pause before they clutter up their news feed with what might be perceived as not premium cable news channels.
I mean, I think you could make the same argument for Hulu, right? Like Hulu just has the one package. They want to be
with that.
The prestige basic. They're saying everything you need, the essentials you need, are in this one package for $40 a month. Now, we talked about how they may be changing that in the future, but right now that's their presentation. So, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying maybe what Hulu has realized, and whether PlayStation will or not, we'll see, is this doesn't dilute the brand. It actually attracts the very customers we're trying to reach, because they like these brands for whatever reason that is.
Yeah, I just want to know what unpleasant thought this co-host on the left is having in the photo that in the Engadget story that we have there. Can you flash that up there?
Stop making visual bits.
I
think Engadget picked that still on purpose because it looked like she was having an unpleasant thought. And they're like, this will be funny.
Okay, all right, I believe you.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to thank our bosses. We are added to basic service for 1,000+ people, Brian.
Yeah, man. Tell you what, if you remember back in the beginning, we used to be a different show on a different network, and then we had to go independent. And it would never have been possible if it weren't for the 1,400+ beautiful, beautiful people that keep us loud, live, and independent. If you're watching live, you can see on the video that we are $3 away from a very important milestone. We'd like to stay above that milestone. So if you don't mind kicking in, if you think this show is worth $1 an episode, guess what? We'd love to have it. If you, in your heart of hearts, would buy one coffee for the two of us every month and make us split the coffee, then we would love to have that. Please go over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. And plus, you also get your very own feed. Plus, you get the after talk that we do that nobody but the patrons get. Thank you, bosses.
Thank you. Let's tell you how to watch now. Couple things this week. An update to the Fire TV Cube lets you use your voice to control profile selections and move up, down, left, right, or select like you would with a remote. So you're basically talking to like you would to an Amazon Echo, and you're like left, right, select. It's supported across a range of apps, not all of the apps, but the big ones: Hulu, Netflix, HBO, ESPN, etc. Not to where you want things to be yet, Brian, but another step along that road, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be a tedious way to. I'm going to guess that it will not be anybody's favorite way to do something, but I bet they will like it more than trying to find the remote. And as a result, I'm glad it's there, but I don't know that it's terribly
it's also
effective.
good for accessibility options to have the option if you maybe don't have all your motor skills, or
if you need to control things by voice, this is another accessibility option for you for sure. I'm with you, Brian, though. I was able to control my Windows 3.1 machine this way in 1993.
Right.
I had a little voice control thing that I could say left, right, enter. And it worked really well. Like it could recognize left, right, up, down, and enter. But man, it was faster to just do it than to say left, right, down, up, select. So I don't know. Maybe this will be better, but it feels like It feels like a cool demo, not a useful thing, except for the accessibility factor, which Bryce rightly pointed out.
Yeah, I don't even know that it's a cool demo. It seems fairly trivial, given the fact that it's just replicating something that you could have done 25 years ago. But whatever.
I guess that's a good point, right? AT&T is beta testing an Android TV device that it would make and give to its DirecTV Now subscribers. It's going to make it available on a trial basis in the first half of next year. Has voice search. You're probably using Google Assistant, I would guess. Optical audio out, USB, HDMI. Nothing about it really seems that much different than other Android TV devices you get, like the Nexus or the Channel Master or any of those. Even the NVIDIA Shield uses Android TV and is more capable than this. So I think this is just a way for AT&T to market. And if they give it away, like subscribe to DirecTV Now and get this box that's customized to the best DirecTV Now experience and also includes Netflix and stuff like that, then sure, it's probably a good marketing deal for them. But I don't expect it to be the kind of device that will make me decide to get DirecTV Now instead of something else.
Here's what this smells like to me. This smells like something that was designed from the get-go to be an answer to a resistance questions for salespeople. When AT&T, they know that they're about to be a dumb pipe company. They know that everything's going over the top. They know that they're going to have everything be cloud-based. And as they try to explain that to 20-year-olds, they're not going to have any trouble. 30-year-olds, maybe a little bit of resistance. 40-year-olds, 50. But then you get up to 50-year-olds, and they say, wait, does that mean I have to go buy a Roku or a Fire Stick? And then this is their built-in thing. Like, no, you get the amazing AT&T Gleebleglob. It's the solution of the future, is what this script that I'm holding in front of me tells me to tell you. So my guess is nobody cares if this is any good. Even the people who receive it will just end up buying a Roku anyway. They are making it so that the salespeople can have something to say when somebody puts that up to be for resistance.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because the people who are like, well, wait a minute, how do I get it? You can absolutely say, like, just like cable TV, we'll send you the equipment, we'll install it for you. It just, it's one less pipe coming into your house and screwing up the look of your house out there. I don't know. I don't even know.
The AT&T Gleebleglob is the future. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be just like cable as far as everything you're concerned with, but cheaper.
Right. And cheaper for them as well, because they're no longer paying Scientific Atlanta or whatever. Was it?
It used to be Scientific Atlanta. Yeah.
Atlanta Scientific or Scientific Atlanta. One of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Not religious Atlanta. They didn't make any cable boxes. It's only Scientific Atlanta. So many different Atlantas we could talk about.
Christian Scientific Atlanta, totally different thing.
Yeah, that one's in Florida, oddly enough, even though it's called Atlanta. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location. Under surveillance.
Rick and Morty head writer Mike McMahon has created an animated Star Trek series for CBS called Below Decks. It will follow, and I quote, the support crew serving on one of Starfleet's least important ships. Star Trek executive producer Alex Kurtzman, who's been developing all these shows for CBS, wrote in a press release, Mike won our hearts with his first sentence. I want to do a show about the people who put the yellow cartridge in the food replicator so a banana can come out the other end. Also, Kurtzman added that McMahon's cat is named Riker. His son is named Sagan. Kurtzman says the man is committed.
I don't doubt that there will be some top quality comedy writing in it. I also don't doubt that he loves Star Trek. I question what this brings. I question two things. Will the show be funnier because it's in the actual canonical Star Trek universe? I somehow doubt it, unless it's being disrespectful to it in a funny and transgressive way. I also question, will the Star Trek universe be a better place for having this part of the canonical story in it? And I don't know about that either. So
your first question I can get really easy, which is, are they going to let him write the way he writes for Rick and Morty? Because if they don't, let him be transgressive, etc., and make fun of the Federation. He's the guy who does the Twitter account, season 8, TNG season 8, where he just makes up ridiculous plot summaries for mythical 8th season
If
Star
they had
Trek: The
kept
Next
on
Generation
going,
episodes. If they let him do that, will they let him do that? Is one question.
Yeah.
The other question I think is actually more interesting. Like, okay, let's say they do, and he has a great funny thing. Is there any reason that it helps the rest of Star Trek, or could it have been any universe?
Right, and actually, and Bryce is chatting in the chat asking, I've already been on the record as saying that the Star Wars universe desperately needs more wild stories of all varieties, and Star Wars has always been silly. Low key, super duper silly from the very beginning. Would it help if I got out and pushed? A reference to starting a car by popping the clutch, which has no place in the Star Wars universe, right? The creature design, super duper silly or whatever. Star Trek has always, I felt like, been fairly high-minded and try to tackle big societal issues through the lens of an abundant and centralized societal lens. Comedy, I think, could totally work in the Star Wars universe that I have a harder time seeing it in. I think I think it'll be funny the way it's, I'm using air quotes here, funny when Neil deGrasse Tyson makes a joke. It's like,
Wow.
That
That's
certainly
a
was
really, really good way of
accurate.
helping me wrap my head around it.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because Star Trek is Neil deGrasse Tyson. It is an earnest and well-meaning and scientifically based effort that is often enjoyable, and some people hate because they like Star Wars better than Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't know, but metaphor starts to break down at a certain point. But yeah, Star Trek is about the Navy. It was written by a Navy man. It was Wagon Train to the Stars. They have their comedy, but it's always the comedy relief to the main dramatic storylines. We're talking about an entire series that is meant to be comic. It's called Lower Decks in homage to an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation called Lower Decks, where they followed the people who were not part of the command crew. And that's where we met Lieutenant Barclay, who became like a great comic character in the Star Trek universe. But even that episode, and even Barclay's episodes, had strong dramatic storylines and strong dramatic morals and payoffs. So can you do Rick and Morty in the Star Trek universe and not have it stick out like a sore thumb, or will it just be a one-off that feels like, okay, yeah, that was really funny, but I don't know how it fits. Why was it in Star Trek?
When you chuckled the hardest at Star Trek, notice that verb. Because you never laughed, but when you chuckled the hardest, it was either a respected character acting beneath his station, like when you had Picard proclaim his love for Majel Barrett's overbearing character because it was the right thing to do politically, and it was, not absurdist, just like, oh, that's so beneath Jean-Luc Picard to do that. I can't believe he's doing that. Or it was when, somebody was confused and fish out of watery or something.
In both cases, out of character, right?
Correct. But all of it, or you had a release of tension moment here or there. But everything about it was serious. It's like the teacher that you knew you couldn't get away with anything, that those brief 2 or 3 moments through the year that she would crack a sideways joke and you would realize, oh, she's actually pretty cool. That was what Star Trek did when it was successful with the comedy. But outside of that, I don't know. If it's how do you make it funny? How do you elicit those laughs if there's not really that believable tension, if everything's made of rubber or something? Well, and that's not necessarily what they're aiming for, but
right.
But
I guess it comes down to, can it be funny and enjoyable despite the universe it's in? And then it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit in with the rest of the Star Trek universe. That's good. It probably shouldn't really contribute to the canon if it's just trying to be funny. And it's the least important ship, which means it can stay out of any of the really important battles, stay out of any of the really important canon events, right? So maybe the thing, it's going to be funny because it's funny because Mike McMahon can make it funny.
By the way, you know what? I'm gonna call all of this, and I hope years from now I happen to be right, and I hope somebody digs this up. They're going, the moment they say the least important ship, like this is a comedy about the least important ship, and my immediate reaction is like, let me guess, it stops being a comedy and at some point becomes a credible action exploration series. Oh, and also it's not, it turns out that it's not the least important ship, but at some point the fate of the universe belongs to it.
If Mike McMahon wasn't right, I'd say there's a really good chance. I feel like knowing Rick and Morty and knowing his Twitter account, that's less likely if they let him have his head. But that goes back to your first question: will they let him do that?
Like I obviously
because it can be the Orville, right? The Orville isn't even in the Star Trek universe, and it's the funniest Star Trek ever made. And it's not really trying to be funny all the time.
Right. So it feels to me, and first of all, if you've watched enough Rick and Morty, you know that they know how to write really tight, really good scripts that evoke bigger emotions than you would expect from what's alleged to be just a silly nonsense comedy. The fact that they're loudly talking about this being a nonsense comedy in the Star Trek universe, I'll bet you big dollars that surprisingly fast. It's a very credible, very good adventure story.
I will bet against that because they're not talking loudly. They put it in a throwaway line in a press release that Kurtzman used in order to convince you that McMahon has the credit to do a Star Trek series.
Well, only time will tell.
That's right. Time also has told us that Steve Carell has joined the cast of the TV series about a morning TV show that's being produced by Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston for Apple. He'll be playing Mitch Kessler, a morning show anchor who's struggling to stay relevant. And it's the first TV role for Steve Carell since The Office.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it is. As a matter of fact, we're still making our way through The Office. Every day I listen to an episode as Penny watches it on the way to school. I like Steve Carell enough that I want to give this a chance, although it does look awfully familiar territory.
A morning show anchor who's struggling to stay relevant. I mean, this feels like it's just based on the movie. I can't remember the name of the movie now, but it was about a
no. The one about
morning. It was about
show.
A morning show. Harrison Ford played the anchor who was struggling to stay relevant.
Morning Glory.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, with Rachel McAdams. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it was Harrison Ford being the old-timey news anchor who has to do a morning show to stay relevant, but he wants to bring serious news to it, and the other folks are shallow and just trying to do fluff pieces, and they meet in the middle, and they make magic television. It's actually pretty funny. I really liked it. But yeah, this is one of those Apple shows that we will probably know more about after Tuesday's Apple announcement, although maybe not. All the leaks say it's coming in the first half of 2019, and whether you'll get it for free or have to pay for it if you don't own an Apple device or whatever, lots of different sources saying lots of different things. Netflix announced that Matt Groening's Disenchantment has been renewed for another 20-episode season. Keep in mind that right now, only the first half of the first season is out, and the second half will come out next year. And this next 20-episode season will be broken into 2 parts of 10 episodes and come out each in their own year. So I don't know why they're not just calling it 4 seasons of 10 episodes. But in any case, you're getting more Disenchantment if that's something you want.
Did you dive into Disenchantment?
I am slowly making my way through it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'm in just the right mood to not have to pay too much attention to something, but curious what Matt Groening's doing with this modern take. And there's just enough interest in a couple of the characters to keep me coming back. But it's like once every 3 weeks.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, watching the first episode of Disenchantment, I had the same kind of disappointment, not disappointment, just lack of explosive joy that I experienced when Futurama first launched. And eventually Futurama got very, very good. So in that regard, I could be optimistic about this.
So you only watched the first episode?
Yeah.
So I watched like 3 or 4, and the show was not what I thought it was. Like with all the trailers and stuff, I thought it was like a big journey, like a Lord of the Rings style journey, but it's not. It really is like very much focused on this city and the castle. And I think the first episode doesn't even give you quite everything, because I think that's like a 2-part arc.
Oh yeah, you're right. I did only watch the first half of that arc.
Yeah.
Because it was funny. It's like, how come I don't remember how it ends? And now I know why.
Yeah.
Because it didn't.
But it's another like weird Netflix promotion thing, in that kind of made it sound like it would be some huge journey. And it was
Robo Jeff in the chat says that Futurama was funny right away, even if it gets better later. I would disagree. It had a lot of dud jokes in the first and the pilot. A lot of flat stuff.
I will back you up that I remember watching the first episode of Futurama and feeling like, oh, this isn't as good as The Simpsons.
Right.
Oh, well.
Right.
And then now when I go back and watch the first episode of Futurama, I love it. I'm like, this is great. It's the kind of thing that you needed to get to know and like the characters in order to appreciate it. And the first few episodes you don't. So I guess that's in the back of my mind, is I'm kind of hoping Disenchantment is the same way. And I just have to give it time for these characters to grow. I like the little demon. Elfo is getting better. I'm only 4 episodes in. And the princess is probably the only character I liked right from the start. She's pretty fully formed, and I like her sort of rebellious teenager princess way. But it's not making me laugh out loud maybe more than once an episode.
Yeah.
I think it's too ironic. I think it's too detached from the subject matter. I think that was my feeling on the comedy.
There's no verisimilitude, where it's like there's no sense that the world believes itself, even if it's an unbelievable world.
Well, it is written from a place outside of the universe, it feels like, which that was my issue with like those last seasons of Futurama, is that they were written very 2016 or whatever year it was, and not like future-y, or it feels very today and not in universe.
And it doesn't really do references. Like occasionally it'll do an oblique like fantasy trope reference, but I don't know if it was on purpose, but I kind of expected it to really send up Lord of the Rings, send up Game of Thrones, and it's not doing that in the stuff I've watched. Maybe it starts doing it later.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the things we've had our eyes on. Brian and I have had our eyes on pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, not nearly as to the same degree. You've already finished all of the Bodyguard, not the Bodyguard, just Bodyguard on Netflix.
Yeah.
I've watched episode 1 and episode 2 twice. I watched episode 1 on the way out to San Jose, episode 2 on the way back, and I loved it enough that there were certain things where it's like you could tell your significant other that they're gonna enjoy it, and they'll say the words, I'll definitely get around to watching that, but they're never gonna get around to watching it. So instead, you pull that trick where you're like, hey, do you have just 10 minutes? This opening scene's a really interesting opening scene. And then you sit there, and then 2 hours later, you've rewatched episode 1 and 2 of Bodyguard. Totally worth it. Do we want to talk about it in spoiler in time, or? Yeah,
I think we should talk about it more in depth in spoiler in time, but I will say that I was taken, I almost said off guard, but I don't want it to be a pun. So I was surprised by how much I liked the first episode. Eileen pulled the trick on me. She said, do you want to watch something? I was expecting her to say Daredevil or something, that we're in the middle of watching Man in the High Castle. And I'm like, yeah, sure. She's like, how about Bodyguard? I heard it's great. I'm like, all right, I guess we can give it a try.
Had she secretly already started watching it?
I know, but I think she'd heard enough about it from her coworkers that she kind of was dying to watch it and knew it would be good.
Right.
So we started playing it, and after the first episode, I'm like, can we watch the second episode? Like, let's just keep going. And there's only 6 episodes. So even though you're behind me, you're also a third of the way through the season.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll talk about it more in spoiler in time, I want to talk about the interesting thing they do, and this is not a spoiler, but that I did not notice the first viewing, but upon the second viewing, I believe in the first 20 minutes, there is not a single powerful character on the good guy's side, on the bad guy's side, full stop. There's not a single character with any power whatsoever that is not a female.
Yeah, I mean, even your main character, and I won't get spoilery, appears more powerful than he is, and you are quickly disabused of that notion because
correct.
You're set up to think like, oh, he's Liam Neeson, right?
Well,
and it turns out
there are 6 decision-making positions of authority that are visited in that first 20 minutes. Every single one of them is a woman of varying athletic and age and all that. Anyway, I can't wait to explore where they're headed with all this stuff.
Bryce, what are you on the lookout for?
Well, I wanted to have this conversation for on the lookout, but the bodyguard is really good.
That's fine. If this just tells people that this recommendation is a solid 3-star out of 3, like a Michelin system.
All 3 stars of this show agree. The Bodyguard is great.
Apparently, this is Bodyguard is a huge rating success for the BBC in England also. So if you're outside of England, you can watch it on Netflix. Inside England,
that's funny.
BBC.
Sarah Lane was trying to tell me to watch this a while ago because she had traveled to England to watch it. But I didn't want to go through that. That's
that
a
tunnel,
lot.
that particular tunnel.
Yeah. And so I waited until Netflix.
JC Calhoun is asking, what is it about? The elevator pitch would be.
Good point.
So it's about a former Middle East soldier living in London who becomes a private bodyguard, or not a private bodyguard, but a public bodyguard for the Home Secretary of England. She's a politician, and she's very ambitious, but she stands for all of the things he politically doesn't stand for. She voted very strongly for to send troops overseas. She's over surveillance state stuff, and him wrestling with being in that position of protecting someone you disagree with.
Not just disagree, but is like by the voting record personally responsible for the events that you had to undergo while at war, and the PTSD that he's now dealing with. Like that.
Yeah, he's an ex-Afghanistan soldier.
Right.
And she is on the record for having sent troops to Afghanistan and voted to keep them in Afghanistan. So there's that part of it, but that's like one slice of the pie.
And there's a lot of politicking and subterfuge going on. The trailer gives as much away, but there are people who would like to see her not be in power, and some of those people might have some sway. So
she is at the beginning of the series a direct analog of Theresa May, who was the Home Secretary under David Cameron and put forth the Snoopers Charter and had a very public spat with Cameron, who was the prime minister at the time, over the extent of the investigatory powers in the Snoopers Charter. They call it the Snoopers Charter. They call it the Investigatory Powers Act in Bodyguard. So it's very directly saying this is by any other name Theresa May. However, their paths diverge because, of course, Theresa May is now prime minister of the UK, and this lady, we don't go that far down the road, but other things happen to her that have not happened to Theresa May.
It was kind of fun. There was a couple of having to pause it moment and translate from English to English, where it's like, okay, I don't know what this branch is or that branch is, but I'm pretty sure what's happening is this group is trying to keep it a civil affair. Right. The other type is she's trying to militarize X, Y, and Z. In America, it would be like trying to send in the National Guard to do something that the local police, it's really their jurisdiction.
It's very much like the FBI and CIA if you're making the U.S. parallel. Like, who's got jurisdiction? The FBI is domestic and the CIA is international. But when terrorism happens, they start to cross paths.
Right.
The context clues are good enough that that you don't really need like a glossary for
Yeah.
it. You know, it works out pretty well.
Although, hey, I'm glad that I had closed captioning turned on because there's a lot of just chatter stuff where they're talking in code words, and it's like by reading it, I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to know what that means. Great, now I know.
On the lookout update also, Castlevania is back for season 2, and season 2 is really good.
Yeah?
Season one was already very good because it was very tight and fast. But season 2 slows things down a little bit and gets into the like nitty gritty political and war elements of a demonic invasion of Earth. So I think if you're not on the Castlevania train, it is time to jump on.
So but begin at the beginning though.
Oh,
go back to season 1.
Oh yeah.
Like season 1 still holds up, or is it a case where season 2?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you just sitting through season 1 to get to season 2?
Season 1's only 6 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
worth
a
it.
direct. It's great.
Right on.
Castlevania. That's a
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, be sure to email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. What do you got your eyes on? Tell us, please. One of the things you should have your eyes on is the modern rogue. And Brian, it sounds like we got a good one coming up.
Oh my gosh, dude, we like Halloween. I don't know if you know that about us. We big fans of Halloween. And so last year, I guess 2 years ago, we explored the secrets of how the Ouija board works. Last year, we did a fake ghost hunting show, and it was Tom that says, you realize as much as you're calling this a fake ghost hunting show, you made a credible a demonstration of your television level production skills. And I was like, oh, I guess we did. And then meanwhile, now we're all about exploring blood of all variety. And we're doing, instead of one big episode, we're doing 3 mini episodes. So we did
cool.
Why is chocolate sauce the best fake blood? And the answer is, of course, whenever it's black and white, we actually do some experiments to find out why it works so well and what it's so good at. Then we did another episode where we just took pig's blood and we made various types of fake blood and we just threw them all at Jason and got a sense of which one looked the best. And I don't want to spoil what we're doing on Halloween, but we're definitely doing psychic surgery. And so, but pretend that it's a surprise when it happens on Wednesday.
Are you using a cherry Coke bottle to throw the blood on him?
Diet cherry Coke, yeah.
That's amazing.
It's fine.
Amazing attention to detail there. And the chocolate, it's not just because it tastes better cleaning up.
No,
The density.
What we found out is the viscosity allows you to do multiple takes.
It stays.
And you see this especially in the second episode where we don't have anything viscous and you just watch it absorb and it's like it's useless. In fact, youtube.com/modern rogue. Check it out for yourself. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines!
NBC announced Snow Pass, which gives you access to 700 hours of live coverage of winter sports. I think there's 6 sports total, things like different types of skiing, snowboarding. Part of the NBC Sports Gold app. It costs you $70 and it lasts through April of next year. So you'll get all the major tournaments and World Cup events and things like that. Interesting take, Brian, because it's not a sports channel. It's if you like these kind of sports. So it's not even a soccer league. It's kind of a new way of packaging things up and selling it to ultra fans.
You know what it is we get excited about the Olympics in a very particular way because there's a set of sports that only show up on our radar as normal citizens when the Olympics is around. So basically, this sounds to me like somebody said, hey, what if we sold it like the Olympics was happening? And it could be Olympics every year. And this seems like an attempt in that direction. Meanwhile, Starz is now available as an add-on to Hulu for $9 a month. Starz joins HBO, Showtime, and Cinemax as Hulu add-ons. I assume that's the exact same price as it is over on Amazon. Do we know that?
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly $8.99 a month. Again, Hulu marching towards that Amazon Prime Video way of saying we'll provide you on demand and we'll provide you channels. Hulu just also has live, as we mentioned earlier in the show, as well.
Yeah, we talked about the smart move of becoming a dumb pipe.
We've also talked about Real Good before. Real Good aims to do what the Apple TV app does. I can't remember the name of the listener who sent it to us, but thank you for tipping us off to that. It basically combines all your services in one interface to make it easy to decide what to watch next. And the nice thing is they have Netflix, which the Apple TV app does not. Real Good also works across other platforms and now has bought Guidebox. Guidebox is the streaming availability data provider that powers Roku, TV Guide, Metacritic, and a bunch of others. So it's going to make Real Good real better.
Is this being an app? Is it a free to use app? Do you pay for the app? Do you pay for it as a service?
Yeah, it's free to use, and then I think there are things you can pay for, and it's got some ads in it too.
And probably similar to, if not today, like the Starz thing. At some point, you'll be able to buy stuff within there that.
Yeah, I think there's some referral links out. You know, if you want to buy something, it'll take you out to that app. Where you can
I love the
Apple TV that doesn't work.
I love the idea of another competitor, especially one that is possibly, I assume, cross-platform, taking on that same space.
Yeah, I tried it out when we got the email about it, and it wasn't bad. But it not being integrated into the OS makes a big difference because you have to remember to go into Real Good to start, whereas the Apple TV app, as it's gotten better over time, is already right there. And when you start the box. So
yeah. AT&T's DirecTV lost 359,000 subscribers, more than expected. DirecTV Now, the streaming service, added 49,000 versus the nearly 300,000 it added a year ago. AT&T's Warner Media announced Friday that its Filmstruck streaming service will shut down on November 29th. This follows the shutdown of Drama Fever as Warner Media prepares to launch a streaming service built around HBO and Turner Networks. This is one of those mixed bags where it's hard to know. This is not a very clear indicator because you have on the one side, like, of course, cable's losing subscribers. We've been reporting that for a very long time, but also the expansion of over-the-top services is also losing foothold. So I don't know.
For AT&T, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Or slowing down anyway. Because DirecTV lost subscribers. DirecTV Now gained subscribers. It just didn't gain as many as it did a year ago. Which is why you're seeing that Android device, right? They're like, oh, how do we goose that subscriber growth back up? And it is interesting to note, because Brian and I have been doing this long enough, it used to be, well, the cable providers are losing, but the satellite providers are still gaining. Not anymore. The satellite providers are also losing now, and it really is all going to streaming. It's just not necessarily going directly to streaming along the same platform the way AT&T would like it, which is why they're probably winding down Filmstruck and Drama Fever, et cetera, because they want to make this Turner package, which they think can be another way to reach people like, oh, you don't want DirecTV Now? How about this HBO-based Turner package? Maybe that's more your speed. They want to have more of those kinds of appeals, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
This is interesting. A research paper published in PLOS One, which is a peer-reviewed journal, by scientists from the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Mainz, Germany, have studied the exhaled air from theatergoers and are able to associate certain chemical compositions to certain kinds of movie scenes. Isoprene is a chemical we emit when we move around a lot, and moving around a lot is correlated with intense and stressful scenes. So they were able to measure a detectable amount of increase in isoprene in the air when stressful scenes showed up on the movie. The next step is to see if they can determine other kinds of scenes based on different chemical compositions in the air from when people exhale.
So this sounds sufficiently, creepy 1984-ish. If this makes the hairs on your arm stand up, then do yourself a favor and read Homo Deus about the future of our increasing relationship with algorithmic decision makers. Because crazy thing, we don't even need chemical sniffers to be able to pick up on this stuff just by looking at micro expressions on your face. Just by you could actually visually see somebody's pulse with the camera, and so you're able to measure pulse and heart rate and all of that stuff. So
well, and the scientists in the Starz Technica article are sort of pitched as developing this as a way to help people understand whether they are going to want to watch a movie or not, right? To give it an intensity rating. Maybe you're deciding, is this too stressful for my kids? Or maybe you just don't like movies that are too scary or too intense. It could give you some information to help decide based on a few test runs of it that measure this sort of thing. and it's an easy way to measure it.
Right. And meanwhile, Google Play is now automatically upgrading standard definition and high definition movies to 4K for free if the studio has made the content available. Price of 4K movies is also dropping in the Play Store to be more in line with the price of HD movies. On the one hand, good, smart. That's the right thing to do. On the other hand, sort of a testament to the fact that 4K is not the shot in the arm that the movie studios were acting like it was going to be 5 years ago, where, I mean, nobody's paying an extra, or not nobody, but fewer people than I assume is profitable are paying extra money for 4K over HD.
Yeah. Well, Google and Apple are now the two companies who have done this. And like you say, if the movie companies thought they could squeeze a lot more money, they wouldn't want them to do that. But they would rather have people upgrading to 4K than not, I suppose. But yeah, let's move on to the dispatches from the front.
It's a thin mailbag this week.
That's because all of the emails were like Jake's, who said, hey, you keep saying that The Expanse seasons 1 and 2 were not on Prime Video. Not true! They've been on Prime Video at least since June, as I was bringing them back then. I checked to make sure they hadn't been dropped in the meantime, and they're still there for me. Great to hear that season 3 is finally coming next month.
I don't think he meant it quite
He
so.
did not have any of those exclamation points, Tom.
No, that's the way I read all emails.
Oh,
Great
good.
job, Merritt. I really enjoyed your analysis.
Well, in that case, you're going to love this email from JD who says...
No, wait. So hold on. I want to address this because the reason I've been saying it's not on Prime Video is because it's not on Prime Video in most of the world. If you're in the United States, it is.
You know this because you spent so much time tunneling over to
the sources that we used for these stories were UK or European-based sources. So, of course, they just said it's not there because for them it's not there. It's my fault for not checking to see, oh, wait, is it there in the U.S.? And saying, okay, most of the world doesn't have it yet. Although if you're lucky enough to be in the U.S., you have it. There may be other regions as well that have it. I haven't checked all the regions. That was the cause of the confusion. I'm sorry that I let you down, Jake.
JD writes in, Dear Tom and Brian, I recently switched from my Apple TV device back to my Fire TV device in anticipation of the release of the Fire TV recast. I also resubscribed to PlayStation View after you mentioned last week the integration with both Apple TV's TV app and the Fire TV. Now, when I scroll down on the Fire TV home screen, I'm presented with a list of what's playing live on PS View. I love that PlayStation View has become integrated with the actual interface so that I can easily see what's playing without needing to open the View app and being locked into that sphere. He also says that he is eagerly awaiting the recast for live local broadcast programming. He has an HD home run, Plex Pass, and a NAS for a DVR, but that setup doesn't pass the wife test. He hopes that Amazon has engineered the live TV setup with the recast to be intuitive to use, not at all difficult or contrived. If so, this may be the final piece which integrates everything into one viewing experience. Thanks for all we do. Hey, and thank you for your email. If you guys want to hit us up, we're at cordkillers@gmail.com, and we desperately love hearing your feedback. It gives us lots to noodle on and argue about on the show.
I think it's important. JD said, I decided to start watching and supporting Cordkillers again. I had taken a little hiatus while I was subscribed to DirecTV. You don't have to stop watching or supporting Cordkillers if you get cable. I hope we've made that clear.
You can always give us a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right.
And thank you, JD, for passing along the setup. I love when people describe their setups and how it works for them and how it doesn't, and what their hopes are for the recast. I hope the recast works for him, and I hope JD will write back if he does try the recast and let us know how it goes. That would be cordkillers@gmail.com, JD.
Yeah.
Brian, that's it.
Dude, we did it. We blew up the Death Star.
We did. Hooray. If you want to experience Cordkillers every minute of every day, you can go to cordkillers.com. You can email us at cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will embrace you with our loving wit and wisdom again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
you just
name.
supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one. Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.